Now for a story that's developing as we speak. The MK National Council Steering Committee is briefing the media at Lily's Leaf, Rivonia, here in Johannesburg. Let's now cross there live for this update.
We enjoin the elected leadership of the African National Congress to identify a date for a national consultative conference of the ANC without further delay. Consistent with this commitment, all energies of ANC and NEC members should be redirected towards this singular undertaking. Secondly, the leadership must finalize proposals on categories of members who will be invited as participants to this National Consultative Conference. Thirdly, the agenda of the conference must be speedily canvassed and consolidated in order for all constituencies to commence preparations. In the interest of ensuring efficiency of execution and single-mindedness, the Steering Committee advises that preparations for the policy conference be canned. Lastly, the Steering Committee wishes to announce an assembly of the National Council of MK on the 6th of May 2017 to report back on measures undertaken in our interface with the leadership of the ANC and the leadership of MKMVA in accordance with the December 17 Council resolutions, and to expedite deliberations on mandatory future action. End of the statement.
But in the meanwhile, we will have this session for the first round of questions. As is customary, you introduce yourself and we have that background and pose your question. Thank you very much. Let's start. See you guys. Start on my right. 1, 2. Your first two questions.
This is Chimamanda from the SABC. Talk about the fact that in preparation for the consultative conference, that there must be an idea of what the categories of people are who will be invited. Now, the ANC leadership has said that they are worried about who exactly should be part of this consultative conference. For instance, say South Africa, not being an ANC, part of the ANC. And if we see that when the stalwarts are there, yourselves at the Save South Africa, so there seems to be some difficulty in terms of who exactly and what exactly the agenda is in terms of this consultative conference. Do you agree with that assessment?
Second question.
I'm Ranjini Sami from the Daily Member. Firstly, I'd like to ask you about your views regarding the activities of the MK, the organization that calls itself the MK Military Veterans Association, and particularly their demonstrations or sittings or whatever it is regarding of the Tuli House, and whether they represent your organization, whether you know those people, whether they fought alongside you in the liberation struggle. And secondly, on the issue of the leadership of the ANC, as far as I know, MK had very specific values that defined it. How do you feel now about the leadership that defines the ANC that you still remain members of?
We'll take the third question.
Yes, members of the MK.
Who are you? Your name?
Are you not concerned? Okay, my name is Mutangani from SABC. I want to mention whether you are not concerned with the current developments in the country, where the recent reshuffle of the cabinet, which has led this country being downgraded by the credit ratings. That's it on this one.
The first three questions, we'll come back.
Okay, other members of the committee will respond. I'll take the last question and the second last question from Daily Maverick. On the reshuffle and the downgrades, obviously we are as concerned as every South African should be about the downgrade, and it came about immediately after the removal of Comrade Pravin Gordhan as finance minister. And we are of the view that the downgrade is going to affect South Africa, is going to affect the ordinary men and all South Africans in general. It has already begun to find expression in the value of the rand and so on. So it's likely to feed into inflation, the cost of borrowing and so on. But we naturally would regard it as a very negative development for our country, and naturally are as concerned as all South Africans about the downgrade and the effect the reshuffle has had on the economy of the country. Not only the economy of the country, as well as the politics in the country, because as we say in our statement, the reshuffle has resulted in unprecedented reactions within the party itself, and we say we are concerned about that and about the seeming divisions within the African National Congress at its most top level. And obviously, we speak about the values that Comrade Kathy and those of his generation, not only those of his generation, even subsequent generations, people who sacrificed their lives, many from our own generation, who selflessly put their interests second to the interests of the country. And these are the values that we stood for, and that is why essentially we are here, because we realize that the ANC, in whose name we fought for the people of South Africa, is straying a bit from those values. And we say that in our statement. We, as MK, disbanded our organization in 1994 when the South African National Defence Force was formed. And we eschewed, we gave up our uniform for the uniform of the Defence Force, for the uniform of the South African Police Service, for public service, whether it was in Foreign Affairs and lately DECO. We gave up those uniforms and we gave up our arms. And we don't have a military force currently. We don't have a uniform currently as MKMVA, as military veterans. And so that's as far as I can say in relation to that. And we don't even have the capacity to provide any security for any establishment, because we don't bear arms, we can't bear arms legally and so on. The security of institutions in the country, for buildings in the country, is the responsibility of the South African Police Services, and the security of the country is the responsibility of many other government institutions, including the South African National Defence Force, or mainly the South African National Defence Force. I don't know if anyone wants to add on this. On the NCC agenda, this obviously has to be worked on between ourselves. We are part of a task team with the ANC NEC in preparation for that National Consultative Conference. But the events of the past few weeks obviously speak to the necessity for the urgency of these things to be dealt with. And of course, it's not just ourselves who are responsible, the stalwarts as well, and the ANC. And we call on the ANC to begin to canvass with us about all those issues that we think should be in that National Consultative Conference, like the agenda, like the participants. We've got our own views. I think other comrades can talk to those about who we think should be participants in such a National Consultative Conference.
Yeah, probably just an addition to the issue of MKMVA, those that are parading around the head office. The irony of it is that as the former guerrilla army, we took up arms in support of the angry protest of our people. And today we are the ones who wants to defend, or who proclaim to be defending, the head office against the angry protest of our people whom we fought for. It's a serious irony. Whether they come from an opposition or they come from ANC members who are disgruntled by what is happening in the country. Therefore, we may not and shall not condone such activities. We'll condemn them with the strongest possible terms. That anyone, indeed, who's MK and understood as to why he joins that People's Army called Umkhonto weSizwe. We've never took an oath to find ourselves fighting against our own people, but rather we've always been in support to their angry protest against the system. So certainly there's something wrong that is happening currently that makes people stand up against the very same organization. And those are the things that needs to be addressed. And they can be adequately addressed at the National Consultative Conference. The next question was about how do we feel about the current leadership? Do we think or do we feel that it still represents what we stood up and fought for? In whose name? A number of things are not right. We never thought we'd find ourselves in our lifetime addressing the media for the organization that we so dearly love. That in itself indicates that a lot is not right in the organization. And therefore, even the leadership that is there, it's no longer the leadership that speaks in one voice. There's no unanimity on issues that affect its members, on issues that affect the country. We therefore feel that they don't represent the same values that we spoke about in the press release that the General read earlier on. And these are some of the issues that we have made ourselves available to sit down with them so that we could address. Those are not the issues of individuals, the issues that affect this formerly mighty organization. I think those are the issues that I wanted to add on this.
Just to add to what General Nyanda said, with respect to categories of people who we think and believe should be part of the consultative conference. As he has indicated, we are part of a task team that is preparing for that conference. Our approach is that we are seeking a moment for the ANC as a party, the ANC as an institution, to look at itself very critically and very courageously with the view to putting things back in order within the ANC. Obviously, the people who would, in our view, be helpful in achieving that is firstly the elected leadership of the ANC as it stands now. And it starts from the NEC right at the top there to the provincial executives of the ANC and to the elected regional collectives of the ANC. That leadership, it is important that it must be at that dialogue. But of course, added to that, we are very clear that another segment within the organization of people who would assist a discussion that will really find lasting solutions to our problems, it's the community of members and cadres who have performed duties within the organization before, e.g., all former members of the National Executive over time in the ANC who are still alive. They have had exposure to, where the organization comes from. They have been tested by all manner of situations the organization encountered before. So for them to be part of the discussion of today's problem would obviously strengthen, inputs in that discussion. But you're also talking about other, coteries of ANC cadres, for instance, those who have served in the PMC of the ANC, the Political Military Council of the ANC before its unbanning, because that was a structure that was responsible for internal political and military work of the organization. That is a structure of comrades who were exposed to challenges of on the ground of building the organization into the, big movement that it is today. So they would bring in, of course, the organizational memory about, how we got to where we are today. But you also have, another coterie of cadres who were representatives of the ANC in different countries all over the globe. They represent, senior cadres within the organization. So all of those comrades who were chief reps of the ANC across the globe, it is important that they must be in the same room also to bring in whatever they can contribute to finding these solutions. But internally, the ANC had underground leadership. During the era of the mass democratic movement, it had leadership organs underground in the country. And for instance, when the ANC was unbanned, it had internal leadership corps established in the 14 regions of the country then, before the structure was changed into the provinces of today. So all of those interim leadership corps that were in the 14 it would strengthen our ability in that consultative conference to come up with the right solutions. But I'm just saying this to give a sense of what our thinking is about who must be at that consultative conference. It is an ANC consultative conference. Yes, politically speaking, the ANC has been the leader of a broad mass democratic movement that sought to achieve a united non-racial democratic South Africa. The ANC, the party, was a narrow, if you like, it's a narrow definition of what the ANC stood for. You had a broader movement at the time. There are many structures that we can make reference to, that were part of the broad front that the ANC has been leading. The point is, how do we make it a point that all the leadership of that broad movement are part of this discussion? It's something that the task team must look into, but the logic from which the Council of MK is moving from is that we want, in order to save South Africa, we've got to save the ANC, because we appreciate the heritage value that the institution, the ANC, is to the success of the country going forward. The Save South Africa initiative, it's an initiative of people who, some of them were ANC members, some of them sit outside of the ANC. Whether it would be appropriate for Save South Africa and any other body who sits outside of the ANC fold to be part of that discussion, those are areas where the task team that is preparing for this conference must actually take very clear, decisions and provide guidelines. But we are clear that this is a consultative conference of the ANC, not of ANC, broad, supporters. It is to solve the problems of ANC, the party, the institution.
Open up for another round of questions. I'll come back to that.
News 24. Before holding this press conference, had you communicated your call to, I'm assuming, the SGO's office, because that's where it needed to be? Second question is that, do you think that a separate consultative forum conference, separated from the policy conference, would win favor within the NEC, given that in the past the decision was that it should be only 2 days of that policy conference? Do you think that this time around, if it's taken to the NEC, it will win favor, assuming that you have also been lobbying members of the NEC to agree to a consultative conference, a separate one? Are you seeing progress in that? And then the last question is around your relationship with the MK-NBA, the association. You're supposed to be going to conference, which is supposed to be in May, but I understand that there's been disagreements in terms of who would be the delegates at that conference. Have those been resolved?
Yeah, my name is Deadlock, citizen. Part of my question has been asked, but I would like to specific answer regarding the National Consultative Conference. According to the international standards, there has been moves to try and reverse the decision reached on this issue by the ANC leadership, some of the ANC leadership, regarding whether they agreed to it or not agree. It looks like some of them say that they don't agree to the NCC. Where does that come from? And how do you explain that? Are they going to, from the opposition, are they going to now agree to turn on the NCC? Secondly, there is this question of, going back to the question of the deployment of MK many people outside the house. There was concern about the ages of some of them, as young as 30 and less, wearing XBP. But this parts of defended their presence to say that these youngsters, many of them were recruited as part of the detachment, which when you calculate for that period, you find that some of them were not even born. So I've been wondering where did they come from? Who are they? Which was a question that was also asked by the standards.
What question?
My question would be, the president of the ANC yesterday said he would graciously step down in his way and shock if the ANC were to recall him. The NDC member, President Jacob Zuma, has called for a special NDC meeting ahead of the voting of confidence in Parliament. In my understanding, Mark Makwele is the deputy minister. How will you be voting at that voting of confidence? Will you be voting along the party line, or will you be voting with your conscience? You know very well the problem is facing the ANC and that of the behavior of the President Jacob Zuma. Then the last question would be, how far are your discussions with the MKMVA leadership under KB Nahar in the conference that you want to have?
So just clarity, on the issue of canning the plans for the policy conference, is it because you believe the policy conference must happen after the consultative conference?
Yeah, okay, I'll attempt to run through most of the questions asked, and then other panel members will also add. Well, I'll answer the last question that has been asked about MK conference and MKMVA conference, and relations with MKMVA, as by both Mahlatsi and Samke. Well, essentially, we have deadlocked with MKMVA leadership. We have been having meetings for the past month. We set up a preparatory committee in accordance with our conference, our council resolution that the conference of MKMVA must be prepared for.
Well, it seems as if the matters of business are just about concluding there.
From time to time, I think we met 3 or so more times. And the last meeting was on Monday, and that meeting deadlocked. Was Tuesday, Monday, and it deadlocked. And it deadlocked on essentially what is a very critical conference resolution, that the conference must take place in accordance with the structure of military's general detachments. And in fact, it will answer some of the questions that have been asked about who are these young people that we see at funerals, celebrations, and so on. And also what we have come to appreciate and why we have also thought that it is necessary for us to intervene. Because over the period that MK was disbanded, the essential structure of its veterans organization or association changed over time. People became younger, or people were recruited And matters have then come to a head when we bring into the dialogue or the debate issues of detachments. Because when we have a conference, we want all the people who are genuinely former MK members to participate, or their representatives to participate. The representatives of the detachments that have been in existence in the African National Congress, those representatives must participate in a conference, whether it is an elective conference or any other conference. The deadlock, therefore, has been because the present leadership of MKMVA, we think, wants to see all these people that we don't know dominate in numbers in that conference in order to preserve themselves in the positions in which they are. I think briefly that's what I can say, that we have deadlocked on the most essential part of what our conference, our council resolution. Forms and or events and do all sorts of things to this conference, so that they swamp conference with numbers of people who are actually not genuine MK people. We have communicated with the SG. We have been in constant communication with the Office of the Secretary General about developments. First of all, we did communicate that we're making progress, that there was a tentative date, or there was a date set for the MK conference, or Veterans Conference, on the 11th of May to the 14th of May. And this deadlock was not the first one. When we deadlocked the first time, we had indicated to them that we were going to go back to the African National Congress, because the ANC had met and told them what our conference resolutions were. And there was general agreement in the ANC that, of course, the ANC also knows militaries to be organized in accordance with detachments. So they were in agreement with us. And also the ANC wanted a conference, the MK conference, to be earlier than any other conference, so that we prepare together, going to other political milestones of the African National Congress, like the NCC and the ANC Veterans Conference. I have therefore dealt with the issue of the relations with MKMVA. They were supposed to come back to us yesterday about the responses, and they have not done so. So, for all intents and purposes, we've deadlocked, and I have asked the SG, I've informed the SG through an email that we've deadlocked and that we would like to see. And we're going to again formally write to him to say. Perhaps the ANC is going to consider some interventions. Because when the first time we deadlocked, we said we want to go back to the ANC. And then they pleaded, they said no, they won't let us discuss. We are quite capable of resolving these issues. On the NCC, I think Comrade Tabang, who is part of the task team with our stalwarts, can elaborate more. But essentially, I think the last time they had a meeting, there was this movement backwards, in that the National Working Committee people were claiming that there'd never been an agreement on a National Consultative Conference in the manner in which we were proposing. In fact, that there was going to be 2 days before the policy conference, concerns of the stalwarts and veterans in us. But we think the reason why we are now proposing again an urgent reconsideration of the ANC is because of the present political situation, where the crisis within the African National Congress has been made even more stark. The ANC is divided at right at the top. There is this motion of no confidence proposed, and there are marches calling for the president to step down. Unprecedented activity following the downgrades by the ratings agencies. So we think that it is possible for people, and of course the other members of the ANC, of the NEC of the ANC, are calling for the National Executive Committee to meet in order to discuss what is now a really deep crisis for the movement, where the death of a stalwart of the African National Congress, the number one signatory to that 101 document, produces such ramifications on the political situation. So we think that it is possible that the ANC itself will see through to relooking, because the NEC actually did take a resolution, did take a decision for an NCC to take place, and this was communicated to everybody. It was communicated publicly. So it's just people reneging on a commitment that they had made, and of course using their power, or what they think is their power, although they don't have that power. The National Working Committee cannot override a decision of the National Executive Committee. So we think they can still be persuaded, and we're giving the leadership of the ANC a chance to reconsider and to recognize that the ANC can only be solved by sitting together with its veterans, with its military veterans, with its stalwarts, with all the people who have got the love of the ANC, and address the questions, the issues that bedevil the organization.
No, thank you, General. To add to this point about the apparent disillusionment within the veterans group of the 101 class with progress in preparing for the consultative conference. I think your observation is, I think it's correct, that it would appear that within the veterans group of the 101 class, there are individuals who hold a strong view that there are no prospects for success in this initiative. But our understanding, arising out of the formal interactions with the 101 meetings we've been invited to, is that they are still committed to making this project a success. From where we stand as the Steering Committee of the National Council of MK, we are very clear that no one is going to
work and demand a consultative conference for us. At our December meeting, December council, we made the point that we were very clear that those who are benefiting from the wrong practices that are there in the organization are not going to give up without a fight. And that is why we are not going to back off from this demand for a national consultative conference. We know that there's going to be resistance, and from where we sit, we have a very clear sense of where the resistance is coming from and why. But we are not going to give up. Let those forces that are against the attempts to rectify what is wrong in the organization come out to the open and let them be exposed. There are a lot of many desperate things that are happening, very desperate things that are happening. It is not to us a development that is a surprise. We're expecting some of the things that are happening to happen, but that will not deter us. The question that was raised about the special NEC, with respect to the comments made by Comrade Mutseha, we, among us here, we do not have NEC members, and we really are not the people who can express a legitimate view as to whether that NEC, that urgent NEC meeting that Comrade Mutseha is calling for, it's a well play, it's an appropriate demand or not. But we understand that he is also raising this out of the stress that agency in responding to these developments on the part of the leadership seems to be inadequate. With respect to the vote, the secret vote in Parliament that opposition parties are calling for, you wanted to know how am I going to vote. I don't think for me it's even a difficult decision to make. For the simple reason that only the ANC members can correct what is wrong with the ANC and in the ANC. If we take an approach that suggests that we are now looking for solutions to what is happening within the ANC from elsewhere, and including from the opposition political parties in this country to correct what is wrong within the ANC, I think we'll be making a mistake. The initiative to correct what is wrong within the ANC should always lie with ANC members themselves. And I also do not, I am not convinced that there is any other approach that we can take on the matter. You see, if the vote of no confidence in the ANC, I mean rather in the president of the ANC, was sponsored by the ANC in Parliament, it would make perfect sense for ANC members to vote for it. But for ANC members to aid an initiative that was not originated by themselves to correct what is their own institution, it is going forward going to be a very kind of messy situation that I think ANC members would have created for themselves. So how I'm going to vote is not even a secret. It's not even a secret. The the ANC must itself take responsibility to correct what is wrong. We cannot defer that responsibility to the opposition parties. Thank you.
Just to add a bit, you know that, well, I have said that Comrade Matole, and you have asked, that he has asked for this special NEC. From where I am seated, I would support that, in considering also what Comrade Tabang has said, that the ANC must lead any processes of fundamental changes in leadership. Already in December last year, there was an NEC that said, and a motion of no confidence in that NEC proposed against the president. It was an NEC initiative and NEC matter. We are calling for a national consultative conference to discuss what is happening within the African National. And you know that our strong recommendation at National Council was the resignation of the entire leadership of the African National Congress. That was our communicated resolution or sentiment expressed. So we have not hidden behind the bush. Now, you also know the recent developments that after the cabinet reshuffle, members of the ANC top 6, 3 of them, said publicly that they were unhappy about what had happened, and in fact criticized the president for his actions and felt that they were not adequately or they were not consulted. And this in accordance with the requirements of our own constitution as the African National Congress. So they were saying that the president is in breach of our own constitution. So too did the alliance partners, because the practice is that the president should, if that happens. And of course we know what happened later on. There was a meeting of the National Working Committee, and the same 3 people and the leadership of the ANC at that National Working Committee decided to close ranks. Now, in speaking to this issue of no confidence vote, no, I think that, you know, we expect a lot from the most vulnerable. When the top leadership of the ANC abdicates their leadership role, we expect the little men there in parliament to do things that they themselves were unable to do, to take decisions that they themselves were unable to do. We accuse the president of the ANC of breaching the constitution by not informing the officials or in adequate fashion. But we expect ordinary backbenchers to vote with the opposition against the instruction of their own party. I'm not saying that I wouldn't necessarily be pleased if they did so, but I'm saying that why should we expect the little men to do what other people who are in leadership positions, top leadership of the African National Congress, are not able to do, to take responsibility for their actions?
Can we get clarity on this issue? What is it that you actually say? One, MPs vote in favor or against? What does that?
Yeah, so just to add on something that is called voting with your conscience.
This is a member of parliament, by the way.
Yes, it's a member of parliament.
Voting with your